so much, I feel like I'm at a political rally. I want to just congratulate the students, parents, relatives, faculty. Thank you for this kind invitation to celebrate this occasion with you. You know, my wife and I have the highest esteem for Dr. Ingo and this university, and very happy to be a part of it. You know, I've been fortunate enough to travel to 58 countries, and I'm always happy to get back to this country and recognize how incredibly blessed we are to be in this nation. And some people tend to take that for granted, but I do not. And it is so important that each one of you develop the tremendous talents that God has provided in order to help maintain this as a free country that has real values and principles. And it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a struggle. You know, a lot of times people ask me, was it really worth getting into the political arena and having people savage your reputation and your family and tell lies and do all these things? Was it really worth all of that? And the answer is no. Not if you're doing it for yourself. But if you're doing it for others, the answer is a resounding yes. And that's why God gives us talents and opportunities so that we can use them to elevate other people. You know, I had an opportunity over the last year or so to travel every place and to meet so many people. But I was particularly thrilled to see so many of my patients. Everywhere I went, you know, I've operated on 15,000 people, so it's not hard to find one of my patients somewhere. And I remember I was in Kentucky, and a family approached me and they said, "Do you recognize this young man?" I said, "He looks familiar," because I say that about everybody. They said, "You operated on this young man when he was 1 year old, and you did a hemispherectomy, an operation where you take out half of the brain to stop intractable seizures." And they said he just graduated #1 in his college class for half of the brain. I'll tell you, those kinds of things. And then, you know, my wife was at an affair, and a very beautiful, tall young lady came up to her and said, "You're Dr. Carson's wife, aren't you? I want you to know that he operated on me when I was still in my mother's womb. And now she's grown up and a productive citizen." And that's one of the reasons that no one will ever convince me that an entity inside of a mother's womb is just a meaningless mass of cells. That is a human being. But, you know, medicine was the thing that always grabbed me as a young person. Nothing else had that same intensity for me. I loved anything that came on a television or the radio about medicine. I was right there. I even like going to the doctor's office, which makes me a strange kid. And I would gladly sacrifice a shot just so I could smell those alcohol swabs. But it was just great. But you know, I was a terrible student, and you wouldn't have thought that I was going to be a doctor. But when everybody else thought I was stupid and called me names, there was one person who always believed in me, and that was my mother. And she was always saying, "Benjamin, you're much too smart to be bringing home grades like this." I brought them home anyway, but she was still always saying things like that. She was always being encouraging. And she just did not know what to do, so she prayed and she asked God to give her wisdom, and He gave it to her. At least in her opinion. My brother and I didn't think it was wise at all, turning off the TV, making us read books. But, you know, the interesting thing is, as I started reading those books about people of accomplishment in all kinds of different areas, it became increasingly clear to me that the person who has the most to do with what happens to you in life is you. It's not somebody else. It's not the environment or circumstances. It is what you decide to do and how much energy you decide to put behind it. And that had a profound effect on me once I recognized that. And I just began to read everything I could get my hands on. I love reading anything. And within the space of a year and a half, I went from the bottom of the class to the top of the class. Much to the consternation of a lot of those students who used to laugh and call me dumb. And a year and a half later, the same ones would come to me saying, Benny, how do you work this problem? And I'd say, sit at my feet, youngster, while I instruct you. I was perhaps a little obnoxious, but it sure felt good to say that to those turkeys. But you know, I had a completely different opinion of who I was. And that is really the thing that distinguishes very successful people from people who do not succeed. You know, God is our creator.
Yes.
And we are made in his image, which means we have these amazing brains that can do almost anything. Your brain can process more than 2 million bits of information in 1 second. It remembers everything you've ever seen, everything you've ever heard. There is nothing that even begins to compare with it. So the real question is, what do we do with those brains? And you know, that's why God gave them to us, so that we can develop them, improve ourselves, and improve the people around us. And of course, recognizing that things went very well for me, and I found myself as director of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins at an early age. And I thought it was pretty hot stuff, I have to admit. But then along came this little boy from Georgia. And he was a prodigy. At age 2, he was saying Bible verses. But by the age of 4, he'd stopped being able to walk. And his eyes were looking in different directions. And he was having all kinds of trouble. He was diagnosed with a malignant tumor of the brainstem, an inoperable lesion. And he saw multiple specialists, and they all told the family, take him home and keep him comfortable. He's going to die. And they ended up at Johns Hopkins. And I remember when that boy rolled onto the ward on the stretcher, barely moving, barely breathing, I was thinking, what am I supposed to do here? And I looked at the scan, and I saw this ugly tumor. And the parents said, Doctor, we were led here by the Lord because we would find a Christian neurosurgeon to help our son. And I said, but this is a malignant tumor of the brainstem. There's nothing I or anyone else can do. And they said, but doctor, the Lord is going to heal our son. And he's going to use you to do it. Amen. And I said, look, MRIs are brand new. Why don't we do an MRI? Maybe we'll show something that the CAT scan doesn't show. So we did an MRI. I showed it to all the neuroradiologists. They said, malignant brainstem tumor, nothing to be done. I went back and told the parents, I'm sorry, all the experts have looked at this. And they said, but doctor, the Lord is going to heal our son. He's going to use you to do it. I said, look, once in 1,000 cases the scans are wrong. So tell you what, I'm going to take him to the operating room and do a biopsy. Maybe it's a fungal reaction or something like that that looks like a tumor. Took him to the operating room, opened him up. Big, ugly, grayish-red mass, sent a frozen section, it came back high-grade glioma, a very malignant tumor. I took out as much as I dared, closed them up, went out and talked to the parents, and you know, only the Lord knows why we're here, how long we're supposed to be here. Maybe your son has already served his purpose. We'll understand it better by and by, all the things we always say. And they said, Doctor, the Lord is going to heal our son. And you know, as I walked away, I was thinking I've never seen people with faith like this. Fully expecting that boy to deteriorate and die, but over the next few days, his eyes started looking in the same direction. He started handling his secretions. I said, what's going on? Let's do another scan. And we did. And now there was a little ribbon of tissue way up in the corner that we couldn't see before. And I said, is it possible that this tumor was so big and it just compressed and displaced the brainstem and it's not actually inside the brainstem and we should go back in? And they said, by all means. And I went back in. Under the microscope, the nature of the tumor had changed. And as I peeled it away layer by layer, I got to the last layer and there was a glistening white brainstem, intact, distorted and smashed, but intact. Long story short, that boy walked out of the hospital today is a menace to me. But you know, one of the oncologists involved in that case said, Ben, I've always been an atheist. I'm not anymore. But it really wasn't for him, it was for me. Because you see, I thought I was doing all this stuff. I said, you came out of Detroit, went to Yale University, and University of Michigan, became chief of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins. You got all these people coming to you. You are great. But you know, after that, I realized it wasn't me at all. And I said, Lord, from now on, you be the neurosurgeon, and I'll be the hands. And that's when the term gifted hands came. Amazing things began to happen, all these incredible once-in-a-lifetime cases, one after another, but I always remembered and kept in mind who was doing it. And I want to guarantee you this, graduates, if you will in fact always keep God out front, always acknowledge Him, He will lift you up. He will use you in a very positive way. And that's what I mean when I say think big. The T is for talent, which God gave to every single person. Not just the ability to sing and dance and throw a ball, nothing wrong with those things, but intellectual talent, which every one of you have. The H is for honesty. You lead a clean and honest life. You don't put skeletons in the closet. If you don't put them there, they can't come back to haunt you. You know, when I was running for office, they were looking everywhere to find skeletons. They even went to Australia because I spent time there. They couldn't find any skeletons because there weren't any there. Of course, they make them up. And then the I is for insight, which comes from listening to people who've already gone where you're trying to go. Learn from their triumphs and mistakes. Wise people are those who can learn from something that someone else does. They don't have to repeat it themselves. The N is for nice. Be nice to people. Because once they get over their suspicion of why you're being nice, they'll be nice to you. And you know, if you're a Democrat, be nice to Republicans. If you're a Republican, be nice to Democrats. Because the fact of the matter is, the problems that we have in this country, they're not Republican or Democrat problems. They're American problems, and we as Americans are the ones who have to solve them. And then, the thing that makes you into a more valuable person. It is said that the average college graduate today will have 3 to 5 careers. The more you know, the easier it is to move. The B is for books, which is the mechanism for obtaining that knowledge. The second I is for in-depth knowledge, learning for the sake of knowledge and understanding as opposed to superficial knowledge. Those are people who cram before a test. Sometimes do okay and 3 weeks later know nothing. I'm sure you don't know anyone like that. But we cannot do that. We must really utilize that brain the right way. And the G is for God. There is an attempt in our society today to push God out. And those of us who are believers cannot capitulate to those who wish to push him out. We have to be willing to stand up for what we believe in.
Amen.
Because this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. It is impossible to be free if you're not brave. And we have to recognize that this is a nation whose founding document, the Declaration of Independence, says that we have certain inalienable rights given to us by our Creator, a.k.a. God. We are a nation where in our courtrooms it says on the wall, in God we trust. We're a nation where every coin in our pocket, every bill in our wallet says, "In God we trust." Where our Pledge of Allegiance says that we are one nation under God. So if it's in our founding document, it's in our pledge, it's in our courts, and it's on our money, but we're not supposed to talk about it. What in the world is that? In medicine, we call it schizophrenia. Doesn't that explain a lot of what's going on in our nation? We need to make it very clear through our lives and through our words that it's okay to live by godly principles of loving your fellow man, caring about your neighbor, developing your God-given talents to the utmost so that you become valuable to the people around you, having values and principles that guide your life. And if we do that, not only will we remain the pinnacle nation, but we will truly have one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Congratulations and Godspeed.